Hey folks, how you doing? I got a quick review for you today. It's this book called Wellness by Nathan Hill. Here's the book for you. This is a hardcover. This book came out last year. It's about 600 pages long, and I won't spoil anything. I'll try to keep this brief too, but I won't spoil anything. I don't want you to ruin it. It's a book that's quite hard to spoil. Um, so I saw this book marketed everywhere. Everywhere. It was all over social media, seeing it on Goodreads, everywhere. And I was in New York City and I saw a copy of this and I thought the cover looked pretty cool, which it certainly is a neat looking cover. And I thought, what the hell? I'll just pick it up. I didn't know anything about it. I never heard of this guy. To be honest with you, this was an excellent read. It was a really surprising read. It was a nice surprise. This book, I think that the way the first chapter in this book is written, it would make one think that it's going to be a sort of romance novel or even maybe a thriller or something. And I would describe this as modern literature, literary fiction. I would even go as far to say is like a modern postmodern novel. That's probably not the right term, but there's a postmodern structure to this book. This is a book about marriage. It's a book about these two characters' lives, these two characters, Jack and Elizabeth, and how they navigate through their marriage and their life. And it is told in a non-linear fashion. It is told in a way where the plot is very fragmented. It is a book that requires some careful reading. I don't think that it is a book that is incredibly difficult to read. It's fairly approachable. I think it was specifically written to be approachable. I don't think that Hill is a writer that is, like incredibly dense or anything. But if you're looking for a standard narrative, a standard sort of easy reading book, this is not that. This is a book that takes its damn time. It's a 600-page book, like I said, and I'd say it's pretty slow paced. It's quite a slow paced book. I found it fascinating. I thought the character development was incredible and the way the themes were written, and it touches on a lot of topics. I saw some folks talk about this and um, mixed reviews here and there. And to be quite frank, I think a lot of the negative reviews of this book were, I don't want to speak for other folks, but I feel like they were misunderstanding what this book is. This is not, again, like I mentioned, not a romance novel. This is not a thriller, and this is not a book with a standard plot. I know I'm repeating myself, but it does bear repeating that if you would like to read this novel, and you don't like those sorts of books, you're not gonna. It's gonna. You're gonna be done with this book within 15 pages. Um, of the little bit that I have read of Jonathan Franzen, it very much reminds me of the way he writes, where you never have your footing on the plot. Every chapter is a different character in terms of these two characters, but there's also some side characters, of course, and you're focusing on a different aspect of their life. And maybe 200 pages later, we get back to that one story of the male character when he was a kid. But then the next chapter is the female character in the present. Then the next chapter is the male character in the present, and it jumps around. And it does require some careful reading at times, like I said, but not too intensely. But it does reward it. If you really pay attention, he sets the stage a lot of the times, and it's deeply satirical. It's very subtle in its satire, but I find myself laughing, and it's a very dry book, I must say. The way that the humor is presented and everything. It's not laugh out loud funny. It's not one of those books that, it's like a knee slapper kind of like modern satire, but it's very subtle and everything, and I thought it was very clever. The prose in here is phenomenal. It is very, very good. Um, just the way he kind of highlights things, the way he does different utilizes different storytelling techniques. There's a section in here, not to spoil too much, just a little light little thing. He this main character, Elizabeth, the wife, she is talking about her child and kind of talking about these sorts of like studies. She's very pragmatic and talking about some studies that she has looked at to try to raise her little kid, who at this point when this occurs is like two or something, in his terrible twos basically. and he's constantly like actually referencing in the text these sorts of studies as she talks about them, and it's one of those sort of like postmodern quirks where you're like, is that a real study or is Hill making this up? As well as long diatribes and tangents about characters that at first seem like, why are we reading about this? What does this have to do with the plot? And this sort of like long history of these characters that we're not sure of yet, where you're again like, is this real? Am I reading real history or is this made up? And it all comes together. So it's very clever. If I could assign any negatives to it, I think there's a few points in this novel, and let's say like 10% of the book, which is pretty good, where I felt like he was too on the nose. Like I could see he was having the plot come to this certain point, and he was trying to make this certain point, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Is he going for this? And then he just explains it. And in a book that's as clever as this, and that doesn't hold your hand as much as this book does, reading those, it's kind of lame. But that's it. Well, and a few errors. I actually noticed a couple very, I guess I should say, egregious errors in the book, like errors in terms of um, formatting or like text, like just shit that an editor should have caught. That, and this is, I looked at this is the third printing. So stuff that I'm like, how did that not get fixed? Very minor critiques. I'd give this a 4.5 star rating. I went in with I went into this with low expectations, and I thought it was just going to be whatever, and it was really good. So if you like that kind of stuff, like a sort of huge marriage story, a story about life, talks about all sorts of stuff, give it a shot. Sink your teeth into it. It's a really clever book, and as a matter of fact, like there's one point I'm reading this, and I'm like maybe 350 pages into it, right? And I'm like, this kind of feels like a postmodern novel. And literally at that point in the book, he started poking fun at postmodern novels, and I just thought that had to be intentional. So very clever. And this guy also has a book called The Knicks. I believe that was his first book, and I definitely have to check that out. So Wellness, a very good read. I don't think it's definitely not for everybody. But when I say that, I don't mean that as like this is some esoteric book that it's going to be hard to recommend. I think it's a great book. I think everyone should just check it out. But yeah, so that's Wellness. I'll be back next with, I don't know. I'm currently reading a book called Against the Day by Thomas Pynchon. If you're a Pynchon fan, I'm sure you know of that book. It's this big 1,000 plus page epic, and about 100 pages in, and it's phenomenal so far. Very good. So yeah, that's all. I'll see you guys next time, and peace out.